You're probably going to think I'm an utter nutter for making this statement, but that win on Sunday for me was more satisfying than the Arsenal and Manchester City wins. And that's because we had to overcome a deficit to do so against a low block, against a club where we haven't won in 70 years, and in a game that turned hostile very quickly because they have one of the most embarrassing housery merchants in the entire world running around and winding people up. So as much as Arsenal and Manchester City made up a statement week for our club, I couldn't help but feel like we somehow exorcised some demons at Brentford, and in the process earned more wins in a calendar year than in any other during our 149-year existence. This is going to be a fun one. Brentford 1, Aston Villa 2. Welcome inside the parlor. And just before I get to the match, this Atairos investment news broke just after I had published the Zrinjski Mostar show. Now, Atairos is a private equity boutique firm with strategic investments in all sorts of different areas, but very well capitalized and based in New York and interestingly Philadelphia. And I say that because, of course, that's where Chris Heck took a derelict NBA franchise and helped lead a complete revolution which appreciated the 76ers' value to quite staggering levels from where they started. And I'm curious to know who initiated this joint venture. Was this V Sports, Aston Villa, going and saying we need to be better capitalized to take advantage of global opportunities and maybe increase this cooperation network we have with several clubs around the world? Or did Atairos look at our elite management structure, which includes Wes Edens, no stranger to professional sports and success, plus Unai Emery and Chris Heck and others, and say, that is a very solid organization that is growing and expanding. We want to get in on that. The first thing I thought of when I saw this news was that V Sports is now capitalized enough to go after the Las Vegas Major League Soccer franchise, because that's a $1.2 billion investment, $500 million for the franchise fee, and $700 million estimated to build the stadium in Las Vegas. And I did an entire show on why I don't think there is a footballing benefit to this move, because there isn't. But owning a 30,000-seat stadium in Las Vegas where so many events are happening all the time, I think that's a shrewd business opportunity. And because V Sports Hierarchy has the know-how to staff and operate a stadium and a team like that, both from a commercial and a footballing side, well, then it makes sense. Because, Major League Soccer is not really in the business of producing footballers. That's a bonus. It's in the business of making its shareholders money. Welcome officially to the Holy Trinity Show, where we aim to dissect the three key issues and moments that defined Brentford 1, Aston Villa 2 at the Gtech Community Stadium, where Samir Gaby, senior correspondent, was amongst the crowd, lapping up the result wearing this gorgeous Henson away in an alternate white. Samir, tell Henson they can have my money. Take my money. Also there, rolling video, was Samir's associate correspondent, Enam Malik, who caught a major moment in this match. Let's review the key numbers, and I focused on tackles 1, which was one of many areas that Villa topped on the afternoon. But as I said during the Thursday show, you can have all the numbers you want. Statistics go out the window if you cannot convert them into points. And in a season of validations, this was another major validating and reference point creating moment for Aston Villa this season. Where to begin? Oh, how about this lovely moment, which I'm calling Me Part 1. This player committed one of the most heinous and despicable tackles in the history of the Premier League, and it went completely unpunished, even in the early throes of VAR, and basically it ended a career. So to see Ben Mee bloodied was lovely. Shame it wasn't as a result of a fist from Wesley, who felt the need to comment, in fact, on Sunday's proceedings, which goes to show that players like supporters have elephant-like memories. Big issue, Neal Maupay is still the biggest pantomime villain in the history of the Premier League. And I do wonder, as a teammate of that player, whether or not the act wears thin, because there he is winding everybody up, causing problems, inflaming the game. He's not the one out defending himself. It's everybody else who has to go around and clean up his mess. And I just do wonder if that gets on players' nerves. Certainly it must get on the fans' nerves at times, because it's embarrassing. And it says a lot when a player like that in a team that is struggling with injuries doesn't even start, even though there's word that he pulled himself out of starting in that game. But this guy absolutely has zero redeeming qualities as a footballer. It is just about winding people up. Major issue, piggybacking on the previous point, but Boubacar Kamara's red card was so unnecessary, and it's a terrible time to have a 3-game suspension, because that's what he's getting. As we learned on Thursday's show with the fines list, he's now responsible for taking the entire team out for dinner within 4 weeks. Still, though, this was avoidable, and Emi Martinez needed to ignore the wind-up merchant and just take the free kick. But there's something about Neal Maupay's face that just gets under people's skins, and they seem to react. Unai Emery will be very annoyed by this moment. And in fact, for the first time in his Villa tenure, I believe he took a yellow card as he stepped on the field to try to quell the emotional outburst. While we're on the subject of Emi Martinez, he provided 2 critical saves in either half, without which we're probably not talking about taking maximum points from this game. The first one really early, 8 minutes in, and Mikkel Damsgaard was in on goal and had a lot of goal to shoot at. And again, it looked like Martinez anticipated where the shot was going to snuff it out. And then in the 64th minute, Wissa, from very close range and with a good glancing header, got the best out of Emi Martinez again. I've been saying it so many times on this show. He does not cower in big moments or big games. In fact, it seems like these kinds of games he thrives in. And because he's not cowering and because he's stepping up, he's giving us a chance to go and get maximum points every week. Big moment, the goal conceded, which came at a terrible juncture, obviously, on the stroke of halftime and from a corner, which was poor. But I always say, wind it back 30 seconds to what led to that corner in the first place, and it was a quickly taken free kick, which was Brentford's modus operandi all afternoon, because that was their best chance to get around or behind us as we were pushed up the park. And it was a rare Pau Torres inaccurate long ball that was pinched that forced Moussa Diaby to take that foul, and then we didn't react quickly enough. The problem is, when you look at it deeper, we were in complete control at that moment, and we should have gone to halftime at 0-0. Once again, we concede from a corner in that soft spot of the penalty area where an opponent is allowed to run in freely and tee it up. And I've bemoaned that on this show before. Why are we committing so many players to the 6-yard box when really the danger area is from the penalty spot to the penalty arc? And it seems like there's players always unmarked in that part of the box. And that makes me wonder, okay, are these opponents now seeing that as a weakness, identifying it and exploiting it? Or is it us stubbornly committing to this zonal hybrid marking system? Either way, I got that old sinking feeling when that ball went into the back of the net. I'm sure you did as well, forgetting that this is the new Aston Villa, one that is capable of reversing scorelines, especially against a team that is challenging Tottenham Hotspur for the honor of throwing the most points away from winning positions this season. Big issue, irrefutable Italian. Don't look now, but Nicolo Zaniolo has made meaningful impacts in his last 2 games, which of course included his first Villa goal on Thursday in Bosnia-Herzegovina. But in this game on Sunday, he played 19 minutes, including stoppage time. He won his only tackle opportunity, 4 of 5 ground duels. He completed every pass but one, which included a long ball. He had a clearance, he had a recovery, he drew 3 fouls, and most importantly, he helped earn the corner that led to the 2-1 goal when he drove the byline with good technical ability. And then when we needed somebody to help close out the match, he used his big frame to perfect effect and showed some other great technical moments holding the ball. Big issue, devoid of Dougie. Canadian songbird Joni Mitchell's classic Big Yellow Taxi features the famous line, "You don't know what you got till it's gone." And on Sunday, we saw that not just in isolation of the qualities we were missing with Douglas Luiz, but the chain reaction of what you have to do then to replace him in the park by moving a guy here and then moving a guy over here. And it's not as if John McGinn had poor moments. He had several good moments in that game, and he's very familiar with that role, and I trust him playing it. But Douglas Luiz has so many tools in his locker. He can dribble to break lines. He could, with his accurate passing, long or short-range passes that split players and split lines, and then he makes late runs that can even lead to goals that he scores. This is a $100 million footballer at this stage of his career if the market has been set by Declan Rice and by Moises Caicedo, and I'm very happy that both he and Luca Dean will be back on Friday. Just before we get to the top 3, if you could do one thing to a property, whether it's your home or your business, or maybe it's a recreational property, what would that be? Because my list would be long, at least 2 full bathroom remodels, because our bathrooms are original 1967. We have a pink bathtub in this house. I'd also love to redo my kitchen, vault the ceilings, put skylights there, brighten the whole thing up. If you can dream it, 24/7 services can do it. And that includes all the mechanical, the electrical, the bones, if you will, but right down to the decorating. And some of the before and after shots that Paul Handsaker and his crew have shared with me are really gorgeous. And you know what? They could work around your budget. It's just a matter of you getting started. Maybe that's a 2024 resolution. 2024, the year you get 24/7 to do that project you've always wanted to do. And of course, it always starts with a phone call. Big moment number 3, Bailey ball. Leon Bailey was a doubt for this game, which is why Matty Cash started on the right-hand side in a more advanced role and really didn't come off this time, did it? Part of the reason being that Ezri Konsa was either reluctant to or just not experienced enough in the art of overlapping and providing an overload on that right-hand side. So in the 65th minute, on comes our lovable Leon. And within just 8 minutes, he's involved in 2 critical turning point moments in the match, the second of which was an inch-perfect ball and yet another assist to Alex Moreno, which took the game in that direction. Alex Moreno was getting roasted on the socials at halftime, and I'm not really sure what people expect from the poor guy. It was his first league start since at Anfield last year, and a hamstring surgery is serious. It's a long road back. He also likely helped provide our 3 best attacking moments in that first half. So it's going to take some time for him to get back into the full swing of things. But there he is in minute number 77, clocking it. Leon Bailey floating the ball across. He comes in on the blind side. A defender scoring with his head. And at that moment, I don't know if you felt it, but I sure did. This was not about salvaging a point anymore. This was about pushing Villa on to now going after 3 points. And as much as Leon Bailey was pivotal in our comeback victory, I could have done without the spectacular own goal attempt in the late stages of that second half, because had that gone in, it would have been the most spectacular own goal in club history and would have leapfrogged Peter Enkelman. Could you imagine coming away with just a point or losing that game? based on a 50-yard plus own goal. Thankfully, the ball hit the outside of the netting. Big moment number 2, Watkins winner. Ollie Watkins was having such little joy in that game against his former club. In fact, I don't think he had a touch in the opposing penalty area in that entire first half. So much of what Ollie Watkins does, though, is unnoticed and unappreciated. People get frustrated. They say he's not doing anything. Get him off. Replace him with John Duran. But the difference between Ollie Watkins now under Unai Emery and before is that he mentally sticks with games and is prepared if and when those big moments arise, like this one, as captured by associate correspondent Enum. Obviously, a disgruntled Brentford fan at that end of the ground behind the goal was chirping Ollie Watkins for the entirety of that second half, bordering on abusing him, which is what the club statement said after the fact. We didn't hear any specifics. Even Thomas Frank came out and said he admired his former striker's integrity. So I can understand, and there was part of me that was quite satisfied watching Ollie Watkins score the leading goal at the time, then going into the opposition net, staring down and pointing directly to that fan and chirping him to his face right back, taunting him, in fact. But we all need to recognize that was the moment that set the game off. That was the spark that ignited the gasoline. And I have no problem with it. If you are ready to step up and still see the game through in a professional manner, but Unai Emery alluded to it in his post-match comments, the team has to show better emotional intelligence and control when you've taken a lead under those circumstances. And rumor has it, and the incredible part is that somebody said the supporter was this guy. Still, take nothing away from the quality and the significance of this goal from a corner, which will make Austin McPhee very happy. Did Boubacar Kamara intend to flick the ball upwards like he did? Only he will know, but the goal won't be scored the way it was without that flick. And then there's Ollie Watkins using his head again. And since Unai Emery took over Aston Villa, only Erling Haaland and Mo Salah have scored more Premier League goals than Ollie Watkins. So now in back-to-back away games, earning the draw at Bournemouth, earning the win at Brentford, that's 4 points that Ollie Watkins' head has earned. And when we review this season in the coming summer, how big might those 4 points be? And the number one big moment that defined Brentford 1, Villa 2, me, part 2. I said at the beginning, this game was more satisfying for me than both Arsenal and Manchester City. And this was the indisputable turning point. Couldn't have been better scripted, couldn't have happened to a better player. And when I tally up the points that I've been reviewing throughout the course of this and other seasons, this will be a +1 in the VAR decisions category, because David Coote was standing not 5 yards away from this incident and awarded a yellow card to Ben Mee. But the minute the replay started, it was clear to me, it was clear to the pundits on my broadcast, that Mee was doomed. He flew in way too aggressively, with too much speed, recklessly, and with force over top of the ball. This could have been a whole lot worse for Leon Bailey if that leg had been planted in the ground, because if it was, then Ben Mee possibly could have sent another Aston Villa player to the hospital. So the punishment fit the crime. He deserved to be sent off. He's going to serve a 3-match ban, and he cost his team all the points. Football karma is and Ben Mee is a heinous footballer. I'm sure you'll have noticed by now that the mainstream footballing media in your country, whether that's TV, radio, online, the paper talk, right down to the crap nickel and dime clickbait sites that just rehash boring narratives, the hot button topic is Villa a serious title contender, to which the people that have to execute on these discussions roll their eyeballs thinking, oh man, I have to cover Aston Villa beyond just looking at the table position. Honestly, watching people try to muddle through Aston Villa talk is downright painful. And of course, the MO is to build Aston Villa up only to be able to tear them down later in the season. It's the formula that has worked for your media for so long. Doesn't matter if it's politicians, members of the royal family, superstar celebrities, and of course, football teams. Forgive me for sounding like a broken record, but Aston Villa is not a table-gazing club right now the way Arsenal and Manchester City are. We prepare for the next opponent in front of us, and that is it. And we prepare religiously and worry about the consequences after. Unai Emery said, if in week 35 we are in and amongst something special, well then, we are allowed to dream and we may prepare to go chase those goals. But it's match week 17, and the problem is we are fielding all these title challenging questions in match week 17, and frankly, it's ridiculous. Oh, I just love doing this after wins, taking inventory, taking stock within a season, and maybe even comparing it to past seasons. And we improved our away form again. That's been a buzz phrase amongst the media, as we've now taken over half the points available away from Villa Park. We've also become even on the VAR ledger. Yellow card to Ben Mee on the field. We definitely benefited from the red after VAR intervention. Another goal for Ollie Watkins that combined with he and Diaby up to 12, although it does feel like Musa is in a sour patch right now. And we were even on set pieces to remain at +1, scoring and conceding during that game. Our plus-minus remains at +16, even though we receded in the first half and then gained 2 in the second half. Up next, Sheffield United under their new old manager, Chris Wilder. I remember thinking 2 years ago when they sacked him, when all hope was already lost and they were doomed to relegation, what a dumb move that was. The players loved him. He was Blades through and through. Why change then? And it hasn't been a great season for the Blades either, but Aston Villa will not take that into consideration when they do their preparation work this week for that game. They will treat that game in the exact same manner they will have treated Manchester City. I guarantee it. And the big question for me, of course, is how do you fill the void left by Boubacar Kamara? Yuri Tielemans' injury situation may help determine that, but could we see a start for Leander Den Donker on Friday? Now, what are the chances that Cameron Archer comes back and scores against his old side at Villa Park? That would be just so peak old Aston Villa. But you do have to think he'll probably start, given that he's familiar with the surroundings and that Sheffield United has its own injury problems right now. And ironically, their last win also came against Brentford, but at home. The festive period is critical. We have Sheffield United and Burnley, with a trip to Old Trafford sandwiched in the middle on Boxing Day. And you've heard this old chestnut before. How you navigate the festive part of your schedule could define your season. And that starts on Friday. I'm so excited for this week. There'll be some shopping, of course, some food shopping, which I love doing, a lot of wrapping, and all of it needs to be done and dusted before Friday so I can watch that game in peace and then have the Sheffield United show out for you on the 23rd. It's just incredible when you come off a win or a series of wins, like 3 in a row, how much you look forward to that next one. And I'm sure Villa Park will be a festive place on Friday. Let's hope Santa makes an appearance, maybe without the parachute, because there will still be a lot of kids of my vintage who will have been traumatized by what happened to Santa on that fateful day all those years ago. Until then, be well, be festive, and as always, up the mighty Villa.